My name is Kristen Tanner, and I teach 7th and 8th grade communication arts at MRH Middle School. Today I'm going to be working with you guys to create some unique and sustainable jewelry pieces that you can enjoy during the summer. So follow along with me in these simple steps, and I think you'll be surprised at what you can craft.
Look around in your home. There are so many different things that you can use for the purpose of upcycling when it comes to crafting. Circulars from different stores. This one in particular is from a fabric store, so there are lots of good colors that you could use for jewelry, for necklaces, earrings. These are pages from a tangram puzzle, also a really nice color that you could use for some of your jewelry findings. This is a piece of tissue paper that's patterned. Could make a beautiful piece of jewelry as well. Old greeting cards, even pictures from magazines that are sort of almost like fine art pictures. Even old containers from stores, fruit containers. There's a tiny little berry and a little globe. Old corks could be sliced and cut to make thinner circles to use for earrings, which we'll show in a little bit. This is a Pringles lid, which will become a bracelet. So the side view shows you the diameter of what, the width and the diameter of what a finished bracelet could look like. Also, we have old fabric swatches, some more produce containers, plastic, plus some of the wrappers. These are particularly fun with the mandarin oranges. There's all kinds of cool graphics that you can use to make fun, bright jewelry for next to nothing. And then these are some old magazine pages that have some nice font. If you wanted to do like an initial, you could figure out which one you wanted and then cut it out and adhere it to your backing for your jewelry. Same thing for this one. This is from a free Conservation Department magazine from Missouri, and this little bluebird guy I think can make a fun piece of jewelry. So these are just some possibilities, but look around your own house and I'm sure you'll find quite a few things that you didn't even realize that you had that you can use. The first project will be these upcycled earrings.
So the first thing I'm going to do is find a cube, or you could use a die, and I'm going to, I like this orange color of the mandarin orange wrapper. I'm kind of envisioning doing a couple of earrings that are more of a square shape. So I'm going to take my cube, or you could take a die as well, and trace around it. And you can do 2 of those, so you can actually use the middle line there to guide you. So I'm going to go ahead and trace the other side here, and then this side, and then I should have 2 squares. And all I'm going to do is cut those out with my scissors, just like this. And you really could freehand it too, but if you want to make sure they're symmetrical, then using a die or a wooden cube is a good idea. Okay, so this is just the beginning of my earrings, but there's really not very many steps, so I'm already halfway there. So here are my squares that I'm going to use for my earrings. So after you've cut your squares, you're going to want to use some packing tape if you have it. If not, you could use Scotch tape. It's just a little bit less wide, and so it might be a little tricky, but you could still use that. So I have gone ahead and torn off a piece of packing tape, and I'm going to take my squares and I'm going to put them face down so that the color side is away from me and adhering to the sticky tape. Okay, so here's my 2 squares, and obviously I don't need this much tape, but I can save that piece if I want to work on more earrings after that. So I'm going to simply trim around my pieces, my squares, okay, and these are going to become sort of glossy in appearance, and so they'll appear as though they're sort of a finished product. Okay. Again, this is super easy. You can do this with any kind of paper or wrapping paper or tissue paper. Okay. And these are very lightweight. So if you wanted to make them a little heavier, you could use like the backing of a plastic container, but you don't have to. So that's kind of the fun part, is you can kind of customize however you want to do it. So there's one. Let me get the other one finished here. And then we'll take a look to see if we like the appearance. And the cool thing about making your own jewelry is that you can always do it over and over again. If you're not quite pleased with the result, you can kind of edit and revise and just sort of recraft. Okay. So I'm just trimming off the excess of this particular earring. Okay. So what I've got now is I've got my squares, and basically all I need to do is take a pin or a needle, and I'm going to take this pen, and it's going to just I'm just going to puncture a little hole. Be careful. You could just use a needle or a pen or a safety pin. So I'm going to make a hole that's big enough for my earring binding to go through. Okay. So here I've got this little hole, and I'm going to kind of work it through with this pen, so it's a little bit larger in size. Just big enough. You don't want it too big, because then you won't end up with a very finished looking product. Okay, so I'm going to make one there as well. Work it through a little bit, not too much. Okay, and now I'm going to take my earring fish hooks, and I've already spread apart the little, see if you can see this, the little eye. Okay, so it's kind of like a little hook that is pushed together, but I've pushed it apart so that I can thread it through my earring. So I'm just going to sort of take my paper, and I'm going to thread it through. Okay.
The next project will be these upcycled cork earrings.
So this project is going to involve using a cork and basically slicing off the ends of the cork into two symmetrical pieces that will become your earrings. I would highly suggest that you do that with adult supervision. So using either an X-Acto knife or even just a cutting knife, a serrated knife, that would work as well. The cork really is pretty soft and will cut pretty easily. So once you have your circles, your identical circles, you're going to decide what you want to do with these earrings. So you could even just paint them. That would be really lovely, just to have some different multicolor paint. Or if you wanted to use some of the items that I showed you earlier, such as this tissue paper, this is also a nice way to sort of dress up the cork. And so what I've done is I've cut some circles out of the paper. I cut the one before, and I'll cut this one right now. So I just went ahead and traced around the circles, the cork, and then once I have my tissue paper circles, I can basically adhere them to the cork. And if you wanted to even do multicolor, you could use lots of different types of tissue paper, and it could be sort of like a mosaic. So I'm just going to use a glue stick right now. If you have other glue at home, just regular Elmer's will work as well. But I just happen to have a glue stick nearby, so that's what I'm using. and I'm going to go ahead and make sure I get that tissue paper really nicely pressed against the cork so that it's really smooth and there's no wrinkles or paper that's sticking out. You might need to trim if it's not exactly how you're liking it. So let me go ahead and do the other one here. And obviously, you know, you're the designer, so you can choose any type of paper or paint. Newsprint is kind of a fun option as well. The thinner, the better if you're going to use paper, because it just provides a really smooth surface the thinner the paper that you use. So you're going to have your fish hook ready. Fish hook's ready. But before you insert those, you're going to need a place to insert those. So I'm going to use a hammer and a nail. There's several different ways. I may not even need to use the hammer, actually. Just give it a little bit of a push. You may not even need to use it. You could use a pen, but I would suggest a nail because it will give you a little bit wider area to work with to insert your fish hook. So you may not, like I said, you may not even need to use your hammer. I'm going to try it first with just inserting it in there. So once I have a hole to work with, I'm going to take my fish hook, and I want it to be, this might take a couple tries, and that's okay. I want it to be the hook facing away from the front of the earring. So I'm going to push it down so that it goes all the way down to the tip of the ball there, so that when you put it in your ear, it will dangle with the decorated side facing out. Okay, so there's one, and then the other one. Just going to do the same thing again. I'm going to try to do it without the. Actually, this one's being a little bit more stubborn, so I might need to use the hammer a little bit here. So once you have a hole started, sometimes you can sort of take your fish hook and just push it down deeper there. So we'll try that. And don't be discouraged if you don't get it the first time. Sometimes, like I said, it takes a couple tries to kind of push it in there. Okay? Now, if you're having a hard time, see, mine even fell apart the second time. If you're having a hard time with getting the tissue paper to stick, or whatever the element that you're using, you might also want to do a clear coat of like a Mod Podge, which you can also get at Joann's, or even clear nail polish would also work as well. So I'm going to set this guy down here and fix him up. As you can see, this one in particular looks pretty good. So those are cork earrings. I hope you have fun with that project.
So here is a finished project of the earrings, the cork earrings, and you could, if you wanted to be an entrepreneur and sell these, you could actually use like a paint chip or any kind of old greeting card and stick them through that card, and it would be a lovely display. Enjoy your earrings. This project will be an upcycled bracelet using a Pringles lid.
So this project involves using a plastic lid from a chip container. It could be like a Pringles or any other kind of generic chip will work. And it's going to become a bracelet. So as you can see, I've already used my scissors to sort of start cutting. Sometimes it's easier if you just sort of fold it in half and start cutting across like this. It can be kind of tough, so then once you've made that initial cut, you can use your scissors to slip inside there and cut around the perimeter of the lid. You want to make sure you don't cut through the thicker portion of the lid edge, because that's what you're going to use to wrap with a fabric of your choice, or yarn, or really basically anything. Even tissue paper could work. So I'm going to cut as best that I can. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I've basically cut the center out. You could also use the center for you know, a variety of earrings, which we'll maybe do in a minute. I'll show you that. So now we have a nice circular band. I'm going to trim just a little bit more on the edge here because it's just a little bit uneven. So, okay. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you just don't want any really sharp or rough edges because then when you go to wrap, it won't be as neat of a end result. Okay. All right. So once I have my circle cut, I'm going to decide what I want to cover my bracelet with. So I'm just using a couple of strips of fabric. These could be cut from any kind of old article of clothing that's ready for a thrift store, or you know, just you're finished with using it, or there's a hole in it, you can still cut it. These are thin, and I would highly recommend choosing something that is a thinner fabric, like a shirt. A men's shirt would work really well, or even a women's shirt, like a button-down. So this just happens to be some cotton, kind of a gingham print, so nice kind of for summer. So I thought I would use that, and you could potentially do this without a glue gun, but I am using a glue gun, so if you have one of those, it's really helpful. If not, you can still make it work. You just might have to be a little more creative with tying your ends off, okay? So I am going to put a little bit of dab of glue at the edge here to secure my fabric in the beginning here. Let me see. There we go. Got stuck. Glue guns are really wonderful tools that you can also buy at Joann's. If you're going to be doing a lot of crafting, they're a really good investment because you can use them for so many different projects. So I'm going to go ahead and start my fabric, and I'm going to hold my finger on that place even though there's glue there just to secure it, and I'm going to start wrapping my way around really tightly around this plastic ring, okay? So as I wrap, I'm just going to follow the contour of the circle and secure the fabric so that I'm creating a nice covered bracelet, because I think that one of the most important things as you're doing these crafts to remember is that when you're doing them and following the proper directions, the results will be just so much cleaner, and you'll feel like you're wearing something that you could have purchased at a store. So again, just make sure that you're wrapping this really tightly. You probably will need to, depending on the length of the fabric that you cut, you might need to secure and then move forward with the rest of your fabric. So let's go ahead and let's see. This might actually make it to the end. I'm not sure. Looks like it's going to. So it doesn't take a lot of fabric. Just kind of eyeball it, kind of estimate what you're going to need. And so I'm going to take my end here, my raw edge, and I'm going to actually do a little bit more hot gluing. So I'm going to just secure that end, and I'm going to make sure I do it on the underside of the bracelet so that you don't see kind of hidden. That raw end is, that raw finished and unfinished end is hidden. So here is my bracelet, and I think that it turned out pretty well, but you can do any kind of fabric that you choose. You can do tissue paper if you like to, but I think it makes a nice summer bracelet that is very little cost, very low cost, and so have fun with this project.
This final project will be an upcycled medallion.
So for this project, I'm going to go back to my junk mail pile, and so this is actually a Joann fabric circular, and I happen to really love fabric. In fact, my basement has way too much fabric in it. Sometimes I save old clothing because I like the fabric so much, and I think I'm going to do a project out of it. Sometimes I forget, but anyway, I've kind of looked through this circular, and I found a pattern or print that I kind of I think is pretty. It's on this chair right here, and it's got kind of a teal and yellow combination, and I like to wear those colors a lot. So I'm going to make what's called a medallion for a necklace out of this flyer, or this Joanne flyer. So I'm going to take an object that's circular, so I'm going to use a quarter, but you could use any kind of round object that you have at home, whether it's smaller or larger. It could be a penny, it could be a nickel, it could be the cap from something like a bottle. So I'm just going to trace around this quarter and make my pattern really quick here. Not hard at all. So now that I have my circle, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out. And again, you could use any type of junk mail that has like a pretty print or color, fabric, any kind of design. I showed you earlier, a piece of art that I had cut out from a magazine. That would work just as well too. You could do maybe a square, or even make it like more of a rectangle, like as a canvas almost. So what I'm going to do with my circle here, with this one, I'm going to cut around the rest of my line that I drew for my medallion. And so I've almost finished. Oh, there we go. And looks like I'm pretty good. So I'm going to clear away my scraps here. This is going to become my my necklace. Actually, what I'll do is I will cut this one down to size a little bit too, so I can show you a couple of different options. I'm just going to freehand this one because it already has kind of a rectangular shape. So I'm going to make it a little bit more like a postage stamp size. And that's something else you could even use, would be a postage stamp, something that's unique, maybe that you've saved, that you like the image or the design from. Okay, so now I'm going to bring back my lid from my Pringles can, and I'm actually going to give this a little bit more stability, and I'm going to cut. I'm just not even going to draw over this time. I'm just going to do it really fast. I'm going to trace around my paper with my scissors. I'm going to use it as my guide. So here I go, making sure that I follow that. And again, you could use any kind of plastic, but this particular lid from this chip can, I think it's actually just like an Aldi, generic Aldi chip can. It's actually really easy to work with. It's very pliable, and it's more of a soft plastic, so that works really well. So here I've got my medallion, and I'm going to, once again, I'm going to adhere this with a glue stick. Nothing fancy, but it works. So I'm going to put it on the back side of the paper because it's thinner to work with, and I'm going to secure it to my plastic. Okay, so now I've got a nice sturdy medallion, circular medallion. Now I'm going to go back to my packing tape, which I believe I may have to take a little bit more off. Okay, so all I need is just a little tiny bit, and I'm going to, the easiest way to do it is just to put it sticky side up, and then just press your medallion down there. And now it looks like it's sort of a glossed finish, which is nice. And I'm going to trim around that, so by the time I finish, I'll have about 3 layers for my medallion. So it's looking pretty sturdy. And once I'm finished trimming around it, I'm going to want to kind of make a hole so that I can use it for the ring. This is called a jump ring, and these are also very inexpensive at Joann's. Sometimes when you purchase jewelry findings, it'll come with like different things. So like there'll be a fish hook, or sometimes there'll be a jump ring, and it could be a collection of things. So you might even be able to purchase like several different items within one package. These are very inexpensive, and they probably will only cost you also a couple dollars. So you'll notice that these jump rings, they have a opening in the inside, so if you kind of like move it back and forth, then you can see where you would put the medallion. You can actually open it up and close it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my pin, you could use a needle too, and I'm going to make a hole towards the top of the medallion so that you can insert your jump ring into that. So I'm going to make the hole, move it back and forth a little bit so that it's wide enough. You might have to move your pin around just a little bit, work it around so that the hole is wide enough when you're using that to guide your jump ring through there. So once you have done that, you're going to insert your jump ring through your medallion, and after you've made it all the way through, which might take a little bit just to guide it through that hole, once you've made it all the way through, you will have a lovely sort of what I call a medallion or a charm for a necklace that you can wear. And you can do the same thing for an object that's like a rectangular shape, and you could make more of a rectangular or a portrait medallion. Another idea would be to do a lot of these and attach them to a bracelet, and it looks like a charm bracelet. For that, you would probably want to do both sides so that you would see a design on both sides. I hope you've enjoyed these ideas, and I hope that you can continue to craft throughout the summer. There's so many options for using very sustainable materials and things that cost very little money around your homes. All right, thank you.